Yes, Espedia. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. The NFL Week 15 is officially here, and I have a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day and a new week comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. And guys, welcome back to the main Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. After a 6-week hiatus, and I know we had some videos posting here and there, but we're finally back to operating almost completely on the main channel. Now, the second channel, More Guy Boston Sports, is not going away. We still plan to post daily content over there as well, but we are back to posting more picks videos here on the main channel. The NFL Oracle is moving back to the main channel after spending a little bit of time over on More Guy Boston Sports. Special shout out to all those who supported us all the way through. I'm not going to get into what's going on because honestly, we still don't really know what happened, but the important thing is that there's no more strike. We're good to go, and we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So welcome back to our 100,000 subscriber YouTube channel. We can finally celebrate this and continue building up to 200,000 subscribers. That's the next milestone there. So guys, welcome back to the main Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. If you guys have been away for a little while, if you didn't know we had a second channel, welcome back. But anyways, guys, good to be back. We have a lot of picks to go ahead and get to in today's video. I have 14 single bets. I'm betting every single game minus the Jets-Jaguars game because that game is a dumpster fire between two horrible football teams I have no interest betting on. So we have a lot of single bets. We also have our parlays and teasers at the end of the video. Guys, if you're watching today's video, please go ahead and comment. We are back in the comment section. It's good to be back on the main channel. Let's go ahead and celebrate together. Comment, we are back if you're watching today's video. So like I said, tons of bets, 14 single bets. We got parlays, teasers, all that good stuff. But first, before we dive into today's picks, a quick little recap of how he did last week. And I'll be honest, I'm man enough to admit we didn't really have a great week. We didn't have a horrible week. It wasn't the worst week of all time. It wasn't a great week either. We went 6-6-1 on our single bets last week. We are now 87-59-4 on the season for single bets. So although last week, yeah, 6-6-1, it's not a bad week, but not a good week either. On the year so far, we have been crushing it with our single bet category. 87-59-4 on the season. We have been killing it all year long. We are officially, in terms of single bets, a sharp better this season. So really solid marks there for us. Now, parlays and teasers, the records are not as good. However, it is worth to be noted that a lot of these parlays are big odds. Like you look here, we went 1-3 last week on parlays. We did hit a nice plus 154 moneyline parlay. Like a nice little easy one. We did miss. However, the other two we missed, plus 1,084 and plus 5,026. So we were taking some big swings last week. We ended up missing on those. Unfortunate, yes, but overall, you can't really complain too much. I mean, 9-21, yeah, that doesn't look great on the surface, but understand we hit a plus 1,000 parlay already this year. We've hit multiple big plus money parlays. From a unit standpoint, we are still looking pretty solid overall on the season, despite the 9-21 record. Excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. Almost died on screen there. Teasers, we went 1-4 last week. I made the cardinal sin of throwing Atlanta in every one of my teasers except for the plus 200 one, which is a total tease, and we ended up losing because of it. It's a cardinal sin. Do not put the same team in multiple teasers because if it goes wrong in one way, it goes wrong in all ways. So 15-20-1 in the year, but again, we've hit a lot of plus money teasers. So overall, we are still profitable on our teasers. To sum it up, guys, we're having a good year overall. It wasn't the best week, but I think we can do a lot better. So let's go ahead and dive into this week's picks, and let's go ahead and do a lot better. I think we're going to do for a really big week here. All right, guys, jumping right into the outlier screen here. Our first pick in this week's slate comes from the Ravens-Giants game, 1 p.m. kickoff. We're going Ravens team total over 27.5 points. You're getting this for minus 130 on DraftKings. If you guys watched this week's episode of H2H, which if you haven't already, I'll make sure to put that. I'll pin that to the video so you guys can go and check that out. It's the weekly gambling show, or betting show, I should say, between myself and Ev, where we go head-to-head and give out picks and see this battle to see who is the better sports better. That video's already out. It's been out for a couple days. One of the picks I gave out in that video was this Ravens team total over of 27.5 points. I also gave out Rams money line double down, put 2 units on that. That smacked last night, and George Kittle over 56.5 receiving yards. So 2-0 already on that video with a big plus money hit with 2 units on that. So make sure, guys, if you haven't checked that video out, go check it out. But yeah, Ravens team total over 27.5 points. Really, guys, this line is just for the spread has been too crazy. I think the Ravens are due for a really big bounce back spot in this game. They haven't been looking great overall. They're coming off their bye week. They had a couple, they're 8-5, which I think is pretty surprising. I didn't think they had that many losses, but they lose to the Eagles. They lose to the Steelers. They've had a couple of rough losses. They lose to the Browns somewhere in there. And even their wins have been pretty close. I mean, this is kind of what Baltimore is known for, right? In the regular season, they'll lose a game and they come back and they win in a big way to convince you guys that, hey, we're the Ravens, we're still here, all that stuff. So I think they're due for a big bounce back spot. Now, the spread is 16.5 in this game. I'm not touching that. I know the Ravens could beat them by 20-plus points. The Giants are terrible, but I'm not touching that line in any way, shape, or form. I'd rather take the team total over because the Ravens are going to win. They're going to score a lot of points. Over 27.5 points. They've cashed in 62% of their games this year, 8 out of 13 games, averaging 29.46 points per game. Over the last 10 games, a 70% hit rate, averaging 31.2 points per game. You look at the Eagles, Steelers, Browns, like some of these better defensive teams they've struggled with. The Giants, they're about middle of the road 14, but they're decreasing every week. Now they've lost Dexter Lawrence. They have a lot of injuries. The team's 2-11. At this point, the Giants just want to bottom out, get a top 2 pick, get their next quarterback in the future, whether that be Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and just move along. So I like the Ravens here to run a lot of points up on this Giants team. All right, guys, our second pick in this week's slate. We're moving on to the Chiefs-Browns game, 1 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Browns plus 4.5. Guys, you cannot convince me right now to touch Kansas City. I had them on my Sunday Night Football bets video. -3, even bought a half point down and got them to -3. They win by 2. This Chiefs team, I don't think I've ever seen a team like this that is so good. They're 12-1, the best record in the league, and yet they cannot cover a number. Over the last 10 games, the Chiefs are 2-7-1 against the spread. The last time they covered the spread, you got to go back to October 20th versus the 49ers. It's literally been almost 2 months. 2 months since the Chiefs have last covered a number. This team, and they're winning all these games. These are all wins here. The only loss, I don't think you can even see it on here. It was right here, the Bills game. But the rest of these are all wins. They just can't cover the number. It's incredible. They haven't covered the spread in almost 2 months. And it's 4.5, which is already kind of a weird spread to begin with. You got a Browns team that they're already eliminated from the playoffs. They've got really nothing to play for at this point, but Cleveland's a weird, frisky team. They've got Jameis Winston. As long as he's there, the Browns are going to be chucking it. They're going to have a shot. And, they had they've had some good games since they put Jameis in. Now, they're still losing a lot of these games, but, Steelers, they got lost by, they had that Steelers win. They obviously beat Baltimore. They had that crazy Monday Night Football game versus Denver where they still lost by 9 points, but they were in that game. Cleveland's just such a wild card, especially with Jameis Winston in at quarterback. They still have pieces on both sides of the ball. And with the way that Kansas City's been playing lately, I just don't trust the Chiefs to go ahead and cover a number. We do have this insight provided by Outlier as well. The Chiefs are now 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games as a favorite. So, yeah, I don't love betting against the Chiefs, but honestly, if you bet, everyone says don't bet against Mahomes. If you have bet against Mahomes for the last 2 months, you've been making a lot of money. So I'd rather take the Browns here, and if the Chiefs cover and win, it is what it is. But I feel a lot safer here going with the Browns plus 4.5, which is kind of crazy to say about a 12-1 football team. All right, guys, our third pick in this week's slate. We're moving right along to the Bengals-Titans game. Again, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm rocking with Cincy here -4.5. You're going to hear me say this a couple times throughout this video. You have a couple matchups here in this slate where you have teams with something to play for versus teams with nothing to play for. This is one of those instances where the Bengals, although they have a long shot to make the playoffs, after that win against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, sitting at 5-8, the Bengals are still alive. Slim chance, yes, but they are alive. They have to obviously win. They can't afford any more losses at this point. They have to basically win out. The Titans are not a good team. They're 3-10 overall. They just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. They have a good defense. Don't get me wrong. I like Callahan, their coach. He's actually done a pretty good job replacing Vrabel. He's a really good defensive coach. Defensive, this team is solid, but offensive, this team is an absolute dumpster fire. Now, they do have a decent running game with Tony Pollard. He's been a nice revelation for them. But overall, they just don't have a quarterback. Their passing game is essentially non-existent. And I feel like in this kind of a spot, when you look at the Bengals defense, having that passing attack is really important because the Bengals' pass defense is one of the worst in the league, bottom 5 in the NFL. The problem is that Tennessee is 29th in passing yards for. So you just have a situation where you have an offense that just can't take advantage of the weaknesses that the Bengals' defense are. That's why a lot of these Bengals, they're losing these games, is because the Bengals' offense has been firing on all cylinders most of the year, but their defense is so bad. They just have to go in these shootouts, and unfortunately, when you can score 34 points and lose a game, it's kind of crazy. I don't think the Titans are scoring 35 points in this game. I think Cincinnati, their offense is rolling. They obviously have something to play for. I know it's an outside factor, but Joe Burrow, the whole home burglary thing, the invasion of privacy, I think he's a little extra motivated, a little more pissed off coming into this game. The Titans have nothing to play for at this point. They're 3-10. They just lost to Jacksonville last week. They're in line for a top 5-6 pick in the draft. They need a quarterback badly. I don't think Tennessee, there's any motivation really to win this game. Maybe they want to play spoiler, but this offense I just don't think is good enough to do that. Cincinnati has a lot on the line here. They can still make the playoffs, but they have to win. So give me the Bengals here, -4.5. Next up, guys, we have Dolphins, Texans, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm going with the Texans here, -3. Now, Miami, obviously, they win last week in overtime versus the Jets. Miami needs to win in order to keep alive their playoff chances. Now, they could technically lose and still be alive, but a loss here would basically end their season. It would make it really tough for them to still win. It also makes Cincinnati kind of within level with them. So I think Miami here, obviously this is kind of their season here, because after this, they have a kind of an easier finish. They have the Niners, they have the Browns, and the Jets after this. So if they win this game, Miami is in a really good spot to maybe win out and maybe make the playoffs. But they have to take care of business here. The problem is, I think Houston is going to go ahead and take care of business at home. For starters, you have Houston coming off a bye week, so they're coming off an extra rest. The last time they played was December 1st. The Dolphins obviously coming off an emotional, crazy overtime win against the Jets last week. They now have to travel on the road at Houston. This is a Texans team that has not been playing all that great, to be honest with you. Yeah, they won their last game out versus the Jaguars, but they struggled to win, and they lose to the Titans. This is a Texans team that is still good, but whether it be the injuries or whether it just be, I don't know, I call it a sophomore slump for Stroud. I don't know what you want to call it. They just haven't been as good as we thought. That being said, they're still 8-5, and this is still overall a solid team. Ultimately, Miami, although they've been winning, although, yes, they have been better, since Tua has returned from injury, they beat the Jets. Really, the Packers game was the only big blemish. Even a couple of their losses there, the Bills, the Cardinals, when he first came back, Tua and the Dolphins played well enough to win those games. They just got unlucky in some of those spots, like Tyler Bassey hitting a crazy field goal in that one. But the Packers game and even the Jets game have lifted some more concerns for me with this Dolphins team. Yeah, the Tua injury was a problem, and it cost them a lot of losses, but I think this Miami team from the start was a flawed team this year. Still have weapons. They can still play with almost anybody, absolutely, but I just don't trust Miami at this point. Their defense is wishy-washy. Their offense, I don't know what Mike McDaniel's been doing with the play calling this year. Some of the play calling stuff has been really weird with them this year. Their offense is not as dynamic as it was last season. I just don't trust the Dolphins here. I like Houston off a bye week. This is still a solid Texans defense with a really solid pass rush. This Dolphins offensive line is not good either, to be fair. Their offensive line is one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They're tied for 30th in sacks allowed. You're going up against that was their defense. So the Dolphins don't have a pass rush. They're tied for 30th in sacks for. Apologies for that. But still, I still think my opinion reigns true. They're tied for 16th in sacks allowed, which is a little bit better, obviously, than the mark that I referenced. But if you actually watch them, the numbers show that thing. But if you actually watch this Dolphins offensive line, it's not very good. Now, some of that has to do with injuries, other factors, of course. But I think this is a really top-notch Texans pass rush here against kind of a weaker Miami offensive line. I just don't like the matchup here. I think Houston takes care of business here, -3 at home versus a Dolphins team that's still fun. They're still frisky, but overall, this team feels a lot more flawed than they were even last year. All right, guys, our fifth pick in this week's slate, we're moving on to Commanders Saints, 1 p.m. kickoff again on Sunday. I don't really have much to say on this game. I just don't. This is more of me fading the Saints than anything else. I'm going Commanders -7 here. It is -122 on Bet365, -129 on DraftKings. I did buy half a point down. The line's actually 7.5. I bought half a point down here to make it even -7. You have the fact that Commanders are coming off a bye week here, so they have an extra week of rest. Coming into this game, they looked really good their last time out. Obviously, a big win against the Titans. It's not saying much. It is the Titans. But Washington at 8-5, they kind of need this game to go ahead and stay where they are in the playoff race. That NFC playoff race is really tight right now. Those NFC South teams, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, they're still hanging around. So they need this win. They need to go ahead and take care of when they play these easier matchups. New Orleans, they're 5-8. They did win last week versus the Giants. I don't think that's saying too much. The Saints, since they fired Dennis Allen, they've actually been playing some really, really solid football. They beat the Falcons. They beat the Browns. They lose the Rams, but they actually played pretty well in that game. And then they beat the Giants. So a really good run. They actually covered the spread of +7 or 4-1-1. They actually pushed one of those games, but overall, they've been a competitive team. But at the end of the day, I just like Washington a little bit more. Coming off the bye week, they had an extra week to go ahead and rest, to go ahead and kind of prepare. Yeah, I know the offense has fallen off a little bit over the last, several weeks, but I do think overall Washington is still the team to beat in this matchup. Their defense is still not a great defense, but I just don't think the Saints offense has what it takes to go ahead and take advantage of that. So I like the Commanders in this spot -7. Next up, guys, we have a pick I didn't think I was going to make it at any point this year. Cowboys, Panthers, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. The Panthers, for the first time in over 30 games, are a favorite. For the first time in over 2 years. Just think about that. In 2 years, this is the first time the Panthers are favorited in an NFL game. Of course, I have to take them here. Carolina, -2.5 against the Cowboys. Look, guys, this Panthers team, it's been crazy. Like the Bryce Young renaissance came out of nowhere. I thought he was done. I thought he was over. The bust label was officially on him. He was going to get traded or cut or all this stuff. They have been incredible. The Panthers have now covered the spread in 5 consecutive games. And this isn't against just a bunch of dinky teams. The Chiefs, the Bucs, and the Eagles, 3 consecutive weeks in a row, they've covered the spread against playoff caliber and, may I say, Super Bowl caliber opponents. They should have beaten the Chiefs, in my opinion. The Eagles, they gave them a real run for their money, one of the hottest teams in the league. And Tampa Bay, they should have won that game also. That Chuba Hubbard fumbled in overtime, it saved us. We had the Bucs money line, a lot of parlays in that week. But Carolina should have won that game too. The reason why they're not winning more of these games, they just don't have the talent right now. But Carolina looks legitimately like a new team. Bryce Young, some of the things he's doing, you see why he was the number 1 overall pick. And I've been a big Bryce Young hater and doubter. I didn't like the pick at the time. Obviously, when he was struggling, I kind of, was like, hey, I told you so. I'm eating my words. He looks legitimately good. He looks reborn in this offense. Now, obviously, they haven't covered the spread except for that won a game, except for the Giants game, -2.5. But this is just a Cowboys team that just I don't buy it anymore. The Commanders win was truly a surprising result, but I think that was more about the Commanders kind of falling apart. They beat a bad Giants team. They won 2 games in a row, and I think everyone's like, ooh, Dallas, and they lose the Bengals on Monday Night Football. To be fair, they actually did play competitive in that game, and they had chances to win, but they still lost in the end. I just don't like Dallas. Their defense is legitimately not great anymore, whether it be because of injuries or whatnot. This defense is not very good. But with the way Bryce Young and the Panthers have been playing, would not surprise me to see them put up a healthy amount of points here. And the Panthers defense, although they're not very good, the Cowboys offense just is not good enough to take advantage. Cooper Rush, again, he's good for 1 or 2 decent starts a year, but more than that, you're asking too much from them. They don't have a running game. This offense just isn't that good. The Cowboys are now 5-8. They can pack it up for the season. This season's over. Don't know what they're going to do. Now they're saying, I saw the report that they're not going to spend much this offseason again. They're going to have another tight spending free agency. If you're a Cowboys fan, I feel for you because I really don't. Dak gets the extension. CD gets the extension. Would not be surprised if they bring McCarthy back too. Cowboys are a train wreck right now. I like it's surprising to say, but Carolina, I like their position for the future way more than Dallas's, which I think if you asked me that 6 months ago, I would have laughed in your face. Carolina really looking positive here. Taking a -2.5. All right, guys, now move on to the 4 o'clock window on Sunday, the 4:25 p.m. kickoff for this game. We got Bucs, Chargers, and I'm taking a little bit of a risk here, but I'm going with Tampa Bay. +3 on the spread. It is -115 on the ESPN bet. This is a tough one. I actually was leaning Chargers for a good portion of my research, and then I don't know why I flipped to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like Tampa Bay. They're in really good form right now. Besides that Panthers game where they didn't look great, they still went ahead and got the win. And I know they've lost a lot of these games too, but when they had, without Mike Evans, with all the injuries they had, they hung in with Atlanta. They hung in with Kansas City. The Niners at the time, that was a little bit more impressive a result. Now, not so much. They hung with the Niners, and then they've taken care of business. They won each of the last 3 games. It is against the Giants, Panthers, and Raiders, so let's be fair. Not great competition. But even when they play some of these tougher opponents, they've hung in there. They beat the Eagles early this year. They handed the Eagles a flat-out dominating loss. I know they lost by 10 to the Ravens, but if you watch that game, that Monday Night Football game back on October 21st, the Bucs are actually a lot closer than you think. The Chargers, I just don't love their form right now. They've lost a few games now. They lost to the Chiefs. They had a tight, ugly win against the Falcons, which that game looks really bad in hindsight now that the Falcons seeing what they've become. They lose to the Ravens. They should have lost to the Bengals. I'm just not loving this Chargers team. They're not in the best of form right now. They're still a good football team, don't get me wrong. But offensively, I just don't trust them. Now, the Bucs defensively are not a great team. I will admit that. But I just think there's so much more at stake for Tampa than there is for the Chargers. The Chargers are 8-5. Obviously, they're not. They have a steady hold in the playoffs, but the Dolphins are nipping at the heels. The Colts are nipping at the heels. The Bengals, I don't think it's possible for them because of the tiebreaker, but the Bengals are there in the mix. So the Chargers, they do need to still win games to hold their spot, and they do have a tough schedule to finish out the season. I do like the Bucs though here +3, but I think it's gonna be a really close game with Baker Mayfield. The way this offense has been playing, you have to go ahead and ride with them here. They're the hot hand. The Chargers, their form over the last month has not looked fantastic. I just trust Tampa Bay a little bit more in this spot. I think this offense is legitimately amazing. And the Chargers defense, we know it's good, but the Bucs sixth in passing yards and offense, 7th rushing yards, 5th for yards per play. They're extremely efficient in the red zone. It's going to be an interesting matchup because the Chargers defense obviously goes against all those things. They have a really solid pass rush and all this stuff, but I just think that even though the Bucs defense is not trustworthy, the Chargers offense isn't great either. I think Tampa Bay is good enough where even if the Chargers could slow them down a little bit, they can at least score enough points to keep this game close. I just don't see the Chargers winning this game by more than a field goal. We might this could be push territory here on this +3 line, but I like Tampa Bay a lot more. I wouldn't touch the money line, although I like the Bucs to win the game. I think it's the safer play, the smarter play is +3 because I think even if the Chargers do win, this is a field goal game. This is a really tight matchup here. I think the spread is spot on for what it should be. I like Tampa Bay, though, here +3. All right, guys, next up we got Patriots, Cardinals. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we don't really need to. I'm going Cardinals -5.5. I know the Cardinals have not looked great. They've kind of lost a couple games now. They lost in the last 3 weeks. They lost to Seattle, then Minnesota, tight game with Minnesota, and then they got beat pretty bad by Seattle last week. Basically, the Cardinals need this win to stay alive in the playoff hunt. They're still in there, although, obviously these losses have not helped their case. They're still alive. They need this win, though. The Patriots are 3-10. At this point, New England, I know they're coming off a bye week. This is not a good football team. It's not a well-coached football team. It's not a good football team overall. And although the Patriots, they have been playing really well and they keep close in these games with Drake May in the off, I just don't like it. The Cardinals defense has been playing very well. The Patriots defense has not been playing very well. I think Arizona has so much more at stake here. They're covering the spread overall this year at a 62% hit rate. New England just 31%. Like I said, Arizona's defense has been playing a lot better in recent weeks. And the Patriots defense not so much. And the Cardinals offense should be able to go ahead and score. Their running attack in particular should have a field day rushing against New England. So I like the Cardinals here -5.5 at home. Next up, another 4:25 p.m. kickoff, guys. I actually have 2 picks coming for this game. We got Colts, Broncos. I'm going Broncos -4 here. I've seen a lot of people on the Colts side of things here thinking Indianapolis. Obviously, Indianapolis, they're currently sitting at 6-7. They're one of those teams that are still alive in the playoff hunt. They obviously are running out of room for error, but they're in the playoff hunt. They're 2 games out of a playoff spot. They're actually trailing Denver. So this is actually a really important game for the playoffs because if the Colts win, they'll get 1 game back of Denver, and they have the tiebreaker over the Broncos, and they win this game. Denver, if they win, they'll now be a 3-game lead over the Colts, and the tiebreaker, it'll basically eliminate from the Colts from the playoffs, I think, if the Broncos win this game. Now, not officially, but technically speaking, I think this loss would be devastating for the Colts' playoff chances. This is it. This is the Colts season right here, and I just don't like this Colts team. I don't really know why people are. I see a lot of people betting on them. I don't get it. The last time we saw them, now they are coming off a bye week. The last time we saw them, they beat the Patriots in a really narrow game. Like, you're struggling to beat New England. They beat the Jets, but they struggled there. They got dominated by the Lions. I don't like this team. I think that most of their wins. You look at early in the year, look at where their wins are coming from. They beat the Dolphins when they didn't have Tua. They beat the Titans. They beat the Jaguars. Actually, they lost to the Jaguars. They did have an impressive win versus the Steelers early in the year. That was a crazy one, but they beat the Bears. None of their wins to me have been all that impressive. They're beating up on the bad teams, and honestly, a lot of their wins came with Joe Flacco in. So with Anthony Richardson, I just don't like it. Like I said, they beat the Patriots. They beat the Jets. All their wins are coming against these sub teams. Actually, if you go down below and look at strength of victory here, now they're actually 10th in strength of schedule. Strength of victory, though, the Colts are 21st. Now the Broncos are not much better at 27th, but the Broncos to me are a little bit more battle tested. Like when they play these tougher teams, they have done well. The Broncos also coming off a bye week. They're at home too. Kind of the Peyton Manning Bowl, if you will. But they should have beaten the Chiefs. The only really bad loss Denver had, they lost to the Ravens, obviously, back in November. But they've had some good results. I like the Broncos a little bit more in this spot. This defense is so good. I just don't trust Anthony Richardson's Colts offense against this Broncos defense. The Colts also have a really solid defense. It's going to be a tight game, probably a low-scoring game, which is why my second pick for this game, I'm actually going to go ahead and rock with the under 44.5. These are 2 really solid defenses in both offenses. Although the Broncos offense has been getting better with Bo Nix, the Broncos don't really have a running game. And their passing attack, although it's gotten better, I still don't trust it completely. I like the under 44.5 here and the Broncos -4. I think Denver takes care of business at home. They're the better coached team, although I do like Shane Steichen. The Broncos are better coached. They have, I think, the better offense, the more consistent offense, even though they don't have a running game, and the better defense. Overall, the Broncos are just the better team. They're both coming off a bye. They both have that extended rest. Denver at home. I like the Broncos a lot in this spot here, even if it's -4. I don't like that -4 line necessarily. I like the Broncos in this spot. All right, guys, flying through these last few picks. Our next up, we got Bills-Lions. I think this is the game of the week, absolutely. Although there's another one coming up soon. That's another good one. This game's incredible, though. How this is not the Sunday Night Football game, I don't know. We got Bills and Lions, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Bills money line. Now, the Bills obviously lost last Sunday on a really heartbreaking loss to the Rams. The Bills defense did not look great in that game, but offensively, we saw Buffalo. They made a contest of it. Bills kind of gave up the 1 seed by losing that game. I think they're pissed off coming into that game. They want to prove to people like, hey, yeah, that was a bad loss, but we're still one of the juggernauts of the league. Detroit has been flirting with losses a lot lately, and I feel like they're just due here for a loss. The Lions, this defense is really banged up right now, and I think that's the key advantage Buffalo has. This kind of feels like it's going to be a similar game to last week. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't want to touch the line, the total, though, because 54.5 is a really high total. But I like the Bills in the spot. The Lions defense, although it's still solid overall, all the injuries, it leaves them open to more, how can I put this? Let's just say the Lions defense is not as good. It's just not as good with all the injuries, and although offensively they're still solid, the Bills offense is so good, they should have no problem scoring points. The last time we saw the Lions was on that Thursday Night Football game. They beat the Packers in a last-second field goal, 34-31. But look at their games lately, the last 2 weeks. They barely survived Green Bay. They barely survived Chicago. Obviously, those are divisional games, so they're a little different. But you just get the feeling that with the way their defense has been playing lately, the Lions have been flirting with the loss here. I just think Buffalo, they're coming in this game pissed off. This is still a great offensive team. It's a good matchup for Buffalo from an offensive standpoint. The Lions defense, their passing defense 24th right now. The Bills obviously 12th, 11th in rushing. All the Bills offensive numbers look really, really good. And on the flip side, the Bills defense hasn't been great. And, that's obviously the coin toss part of the element of this game. But I just think the Bills are I don't want to say they're the better team, but I think they're a little bit more motivated. The Lions, they feels like they're kind of fatigued. It feels like with all the injuries, the defense, they've been flirting with losses the last few weeks. I feel like the Bills are the team that will go ahead and give it to them. So I like the Bills on the money line. I think it's more valuable to take the Bills here on the money line at plus 124 than anything else. And our last pick from the Sunday slate, guys, this is the other game I mentioned as possibly being the game of the week. We have Eagles, Steelers, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Pittsburgh plus 5.5. You're giving Mike Tomlin as an underdog. If you guys know the data, you know the data. As an underdog, Mike Tomlin has been unbelievable here. I just like Pittsburgh. So far this season, they've actually covered the spread of plus 5.5 in every single game. Every single game. They're 77% overall against the spread this year, which is obviously really impressive. They've been a cover darling this year. Only once in the last 2 months have they failed to cover the spread, which was versus the Browns. But they haven't blown out. They have not lost by a touchdown or more in any game this year. This is because their defense is awesome. Their offense, honestly, with Russell Wilson, has been getting better and better and better. The Eagles on the flip side here, they obviously almost got upset last week by the Panthers. They're obviously one of the hotter teams in the league, but a lot of drama coming on this team with the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts stuff. A lot of negative talking points from this team. This is a Steelers defense that I think is going to go in here and take care of business. They can slow this Eagles offense down, specifically the Saquon Barkley and the rushing attack. The Eagles are the 31st passing team in the NFL. This is not a very good passing offense, and this is not the kind of matchup to go ahead and get that passing offense right. I think Pittsburgh goes ahead. And I'm not saying they necessarily win the game, but I do kind of like Steelers on the money line, I'll be honest. I do think the Steelers will cover this number plus 5.5. They don't get blown out. This defense is too good, and their offense is honestly solid enough. They don't get blown out. Also, we have the insights provided by Outlier. The Eagles are 5-10 against the spread in their last 15 games as a favorite. And so far this year, just a 46% cover rate on this line of minus 5.5. So they have been winning games pretty steadily, but when they play these tougher teams, you see Baltimore, you see Tampa Bay early in the year. A couple of these games where they play some of the tougher teams, they have struggled covering those big numbers. Green Bay earlier in the season. So I like the Steelers here plus 5.5. And then wrapping things up, guys, we have 2 Monday night games. We got first one, Bears, Vikings, NFC North rivalry, 8 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Bears plus 7. This feels like an obvious fade the Vikings spot. They're coming off a blowout win versus the Vikings. The Bears coming off a blowout loss versus the 49ers. The thing with Chicago is they've actually were playing pretty well going into that Niners game. Remember, I know they had lost all these games, but they hung close with the Packers, hung close with the Vikings, hung close with the Lions. These teams obviously just played a few weeks ago. That game went to overtime in that one, so it was a really close game. This Bears team is not all that different. The difference is they don't have Eberflus anymore. I thought that would make them better. They looked really bad last week. I think Chicago will hang in here. I think they got embarrassed last week versus the 49ers. I think they're going to come in here and play hard and physical. These division games are always going to be tight. And Minnesota, I talked about it for a while now. Minnesota, this minus 7 line, just a 38% cover rate this year, they've been weird. They're winning their games, and obviously they had a big win last week versus the Falcons. But the Vikings have been flirting with these losses a lot lately. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win, but it's a division rivalry game. I think the Bears definitely keep this game within a touchdown. Again, they were in really good form coming into that Niners game. That was an outlier, I think. I think coming into this game, they're going to be a little extra motivated to shut up some of the haters and the doubters. So I like the Bears here plus 7, even though it is on the road. And then last but not least, our final single bet in this week's slate. We have Falcons Raiders. I actually wasn't going to touch this game at first, but I'm going to rock with Atlanta minus 3. I just think they're still in the playoff hunt. This Raiders team is really that bad. I don't like Atlanta, what they're doing at all, but you have Desmond Ridder starting for the Raiders. Now, some people might look at that and go, oh, Desmond Ridder revenge game. if you guys have watched Desmond Ridder in the NFL, he's not a good quarterback. Now, the Raiders do have some nice weapons between Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, but overall, this is not a good Raiders football team. Atlanta, they still have something to play for here. They're one game back of the Bucs for the division lead. And the key thing for Atlanta here is that they have the tiebreakers over Tampa Bay. They beat the Bucs both times they played. So Tampa, they had the one-game lead, but Atlanta has the tiebreaker. So Atlanta is still very much alive, although they have not looked great lately. Obviously, they're on a really bad run here. Losses to the Saints. They've lost 4 straight games. Saints, Broncos, Chargers, and Vikings all in a row. They were actually hanging around with the Vikings for the majority of that game, and then the fourth quarter happened, and it was a disaster. But Atlanta's still in here. They have a lot of talent. I think they're still going to stay alive. This Raiders team is not good. I think for the Raiders, they probably want to lose this game to get the number 1 overall pick, or at least a top 2 pick. With Desmond Ridder in there, I just don't trust Ridder at all. I know he's going against his former team and all that stuff. Now the line is actually -4. I'm buying a point. It's a little bit juiced at -145 for the -3. I would not trust the Falcons at 4 points. This team's defense is not very good, and offensively they're not very good either. But I do like Atlanta at the -3 spot. This Raiders team it's more of a fade the Raiders spot than it is a bet the Falcons spot. This is just not a good Raiders football team. Atlanta is way too talented to lose this game. So give me the Falcons here -3. All right, guys, we now move on to the parlay and teaser portion of today's video. I don't have as many parlays or teasers as I normally do. We're keeping it a little simple this week. I have just like 2 parlays and like 3 teasers maybe this week. So we're going a little shorter on the parlays and teasers, dialing it back a little bit. But our first parlay, 3-leg parlay, simple money line parlay. We got Commanders -345 on the money line, Bengals -230, and Broncos -198. Parlay all 3 together. Those are the 3 teams I think should definitely, absolutely win their games. You parlay all 3 together, you get a parlay of +178 odds. Nice little parlay to go ahead and bet. +178. It's not too crazy, but all those teams should realistically win those games. And then our second and final parlay, guys, we're going with our big parlay here. 5-leg parlay +2,117 odds. It's a 5-leg parlay. It's all the spreads. It's some of my favorite plays, pretty much all my favorite plays from this week's slate. We have Bengals -5, Texans -3, Steelers +5.5, Bills moneyline, and Cardinals moneyline. You parlay all 5 together, you get a parlay of +2,117 odds. Next up, guys, we have our must-win teaser. Guys, if you don't know the drill, all you have to do is comment must-win down below. And if this teaser hits, one lucky commenter will be selected with a free $20 Amazon gift card. Comment must-win down below. And if this teaser hits, one lucky commenter will be selected with a free $20 Amazon gift card. 3-leg teaser. I'm going to go +6.5, which is +150. So 6.5 point teaser, +150 odds. We're going with the Steelers here, when it's now +12 versus the Eagles. Again, I think Pittsburgh probably wins that game, honestly, but they're definitely going to keep that game within close. They haven't lost by more than 6 points all year. They're not going to lose by 12. We got Bengals +1.5. Basically, I think the Bengals will win that game, but it turns into a money line. They lose in a tight, 1-point game. It gives us some insurance there. And Broncos +2. Again, those are all the teams I think should probably win their matchups. But taking the teaser gets a little bit safer. Next up, guys, we have our total tease. 3-leg teaser +130 odds. We're just taking 3 totals I like and just basically taking a touchdown off or adding a touchdown to it. So we have the Cowboys Panthers over 36. The original line obviously being 43. We have the Colts Broncos under 51 and the Bills Lions over 47.5. And our third and final teaser, guys, we have our big tease. It's a 4-leg teaser, -140 odds, 13-point tease. So we have the over in the Bills-Lions game. We're now taking it down to over 41.5. That should absolutely cash. We have Ravens -3.5. 3.5 scares me a little bit, but the Ravens should roll them in that game. So Ravens -3.5. Cardinals +7. Arizona can now lose as long as they keep it within a touchdown. We cover, and I don't think New England wins that game anyways, but if they do happen to win, they're definitely not winning by more than a touchdown. And we have Bengals +8. Again, the Bengals can afford to lose that game. Again, I don't think Tennessee can blow them out. So that is our big tease, 4-leg teaser, -140 odds. So, guys, that is it for us today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back next week with another edition of the NFL Oracle. But until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. We'll see you next week. Enjoy NFL Week 15.